it is Mr. Das Gupta.
Thank you, Ravindra. Welcome all of you to this webinar. It's a privilege for me to be talking to all of you on a subject which is of great relevance in our country. As you all know, we tend to see a leadership deficit in public life, particularly amongst our politicians and others who hold public positions. But this kind of a scenario is also not too uncommon in industry. We can cite perhaps very few companies or organizations who can be truly counted upon to following good leadership practices all across the board. So leadership is very important for all of us individually as well as for our organizations to succeed. So thank you for joining in, and I will now commence the webinar. So going on to slide number 2, which is the agenda for the webinar. There are 4 sections to this webinar. One is the leadership styles. Then, excuse me, we'll be discussing the basics of coaching, followed by coaching models and techniques used in coaching or leadership style of coaching, and then we'll try and assess how does coaching impact organizations and how does it promote high performance. So moving on to the next slide. Let us try and understand why is leadership important, and particularly not only leadership but the style of leadership. Research has shown that organizational climate influences financial results, and it can have an impact to the extent of almost 30% of the financial contribution of a company, and therefore organizational climate is something that we should all be conscious about and try and have the best possible climate to promote performance and growth and profitability. You may ask, what is organization climate? We'll come to that a few slides later. We also know that leadership styles impact organizational climate, and therefore leadership styles are important, and we will try and see that what are the types of leadership styles that are in use in organizations. Basically, there are 6 basic leadership styles which affect the organization climate in different ways. So let us see which are these 6 leadership styles. We have a coercive style, which basically tries and gets immediate compliance. It is kind of command and control approach. Authoritative style gives a long-term vision and direction to the employees and expects people to follow them. Affiliated style is basically creating harmony and consensus. Democratic style is about building commitment and generating ideas. A pace-setting style is excuse me, expecting people to work to high standards of excellence. And coaching style is all about long-term professional development. So please note the word development, which means focus on developing people and their skills. So we'll move on to the next slide, and let us see in a little more detail, what does a cohesive leader do? To sum up in a few words, a cohesive leader will perhaps tell you, do what I tell you. So it is a command and control approach. And this sort of leadership style works well in crisis, when there is a safety issue or there is a crisis in the organization and a unified command is very important. That's where these sort of styles or this style works well. The authoritative leader, on the other hand, spends time in mobilizing a team towards the common vision that he or she has. So in this leadership style, the leader sets the direction and tries to carry people along with them. This works when there is a vision, the company is charting a new direction, and if there is a strong and charismatic leader, this authoritative style of leadership works well. So moving on to the next slide, an affiliative leader is more about trying to seek consensus, trying to seek ideas, and focuses on creating bonds and relationships with other team members or colleagues. So this works best when there is some sort of a trauma in the organization or there's a trust deficit, when such styles are useful, and the affiliated leadership style can have an impact. The democratic leader, on the other hand, builds consensus through participation. As you would know, in democracy, you seek views from others, and generally we are around the majority view. So this sort of leadership style works when there's a need to get a ownership of a decision or a goal, or there is uncertainty, and where some fresh ideas or a combination of minds is needed. So moving on, the pace-setting leader is basically a leader which demands excellence, and it basically it expects people to maintain high standards of excellence, which the leader himself or herself might set. This sort of leadership works well when they are very skilled and creative people, but if not, it doesn't seem to work well at all. Coaching leader, on the other hand, focuses and invests on developing people for the future. They are willing to give the employees or their subordinates the opportunity to learn and fail, with the overall assumption and expectation that these people will succeed and be stronger going forward, and that will be an asset to the organization. So it works on people's strengths and helps them develop and grow. Now that we have seen all the 6 leadership styles, let us understand how it is applied. First of all, there is no one style that works always. Various styles have to be used depending upon the situation at hand, and therefore this is called the situational leadership, which expects the leader to judge which style to use when and use that style appropriately. In general, it is found that coercive and pace-setting styles have a negative impact on the organizational climate or people. Authoritative, affiliative, democratic, as well as coaching styles have a positive impact, and of these, coaching and authoritative styles have the most positive impact. So it's important to understand that which are the styles in general can have the best impact and try and use them whenever possible. The other point to note is that good leaders use more than one style depending upon the situation and the need, and they do that seamlessly. They can be switching off and on from one style to the other without making it noticeable. So the essence in understanding leadership styles is that there's no one style that suits all situations. Different types of styles have to be used, and a leader has to develop the skills to use more than one style as needed. So moving on, sorry, I've missed the wrong button, so I'll just come down. So moving on, let's understand what are the expectations from good leadership. Good leaders build trust. They inspire and develop people and work groups. More importantly, they create an environment to bring out the best in people. They command respect and respect others. And they also empower people. And as Peter Drucker said, management is doing the right things, or doing things right, rather, and leadership is all about doing the right things. So there's a difference. Management focuses on how to do things well, and leadership focuses on what things to do. So going forward, let us understand what organizational climate means. Organizational climate is all about how people feel working at their workplaces and the environmental aspects that impact people's ability to perform well. So it's like in a house you have several rooms, or in an office there are several departments. Now that house has a structure which can't be altered easily. It has a ambience, it has some sort of environment which is impacted by the surroundings, but each room can be somewhat different. The moment you step into a room, the decor, the feeling could be different. Likewise, in an organization, yes, culture is a dominating factor or a force which influences how people work, how people interact with each other. But each department can have a subclimate or a subculture in operation, and that could impact them differently. So you would find that certain teams perform better than the others, they're better motivated, given that the fact that they are still working for the same company with the same culture, but different teams perform differently. That's because the leaders whom they work for set a climate which is different. So leaders have a great influence on the organizational climate that they build. So as you see from this diagram, the factors that first of all influence leadership style are the conditions, the core environment of the organization, what sort of staffing it has, the processes, the culture, value systems, and so on and so forth. Leadership styles are also influenced by the personal trait of the leader. What are the leadership competences? What sort of experience the leader has? What sort of a persona or a personality does the leader have? And lastly, leadership styles are also driven by the objectives that the leader has to achieve. They are perhaps what has to be delivered, be it a project or a product, and the leaders would obviously be working for certain goals that they have to achieve. So these three factors, that are conditions, personal traits, and objectives, influence leadership style. And in turn, leadership styles influence and impact organizational climate. Now, climate, as I've tried to explain to you, is basically the environment which enables people to perform, and therefore a good climate would be expected to help people perform better. Now, what are some of the factors that impact climate? There are some standards of working or processes, the flexibility to work well, avoidance of bureaucracy, empowerment, so on and so forth. There are multiple ways where or factors that influence climate, and there are innumerable definitions also on the elements of climate. But suffice it to say that we must have a good understanding of climate and how it impacts people in their work. We must understand that climate is greatly influenced by leadership style. Good leadership styles help in developing a good organizational climate, and in turn it helps develop good results. A request I have for all of you, whenever we have a question, keep posting it on the web, though we will have the opportunity to look at those questions only at the end of the webinar, but please make a note of questions as they cross your mind. So moving on, we are moving into the next section, which is trying to understand what are the basics of coaching. We've briefly had an overview of coaching style of leadership. Now let us understand in a little more detail what that really means. First of all, coaching style of leadership is focused on the individual. It is focused on the coachee or the employee or the team member that the manager is trying to coach. and helps that team member to unlock their potential as much as possible to maximize performance. Coaching is kind of a self-discovery process that the coachee is led through to understand themselves better, understand how they perceive themselves better, understand how they perceive people around them better, and therefore they get a better view on how they should perform, and in turn it helps them perform better as team leaders. And coaching, as we discussed before, it differs from the command and control approach in a few ways. It is more about collaborating instead of controlling. It is more about delegating more responsibility. So there's an implicit trust in delegating work to people and expecting them to perform rather than directing them and giving them instructions on a regular basis. It is also about talking less, listening more. It is about giving importance and giving the opportunity for the team members to be heard, to help them air their opinions and views, and give them the respect they deserve. It is also about less of direction, less of ordering, rather asking questions so that the team members or the employees come up with the right solutions that are required. It is also about giving feedback at the right time, the right feedback, and refraining from making judgments. So it's about keeping an open mind and taking an open view of the situation or the suggestions that people might have. So moving on, let us try and understand the difference between training, mentoring, and coaching. Now, training is more understood, and I think people can differentiate between training and mentoring, but often mentoring and coaching are used or understood to be the same and synonymously used as a term. However, they are quite different. Now let us try and understand what are the differences. Training is based on the premise that you have a trainer or a facilitator with a certain set of skills, and the facilitator will impart these skills to a group of participants in a training session. Now, the skills that are transferred may apply to a group as a whole, but may not meet the specific needs of an individual. Training, on the other hand, is a process by which somebody has been there, done that, has a good amount of experience and exposure to a certain set of professional experiences. By and large, mentors are senior leadership team members, and as a mentor, the mentor is expected to pass on that learning and share the experiences with someone else who's likely to go down that path and encounter similar situations. And therefore, this person would be better prepared to deal with those situations rather than having to go through the learning curve in a difficult way. So it's all about sharing experiences and learning with somebody else who could benefit from that and be better equipped to face the challenges that they might encounter in future. Coaching, as I've said a little while ago, is more of a self-discovery process. The whole focus is on the coachee or the individual to look inwards, to go through a deep dive in thinking and surfacing their inner beliefs, their strengths, and the areas they need to work on to improve, so that this process helps the individual harness his or her own potential better. As humans, all of us have some amount of untapped potential. Coaching basically helps individuals to tap this potential better and unlock the powers within. It is a fairly transformational change that happens when people go through this process, and the impact has been really very profound over time, as statistics indicate. So moving on, let us understand what, as a manager coach, the manager is expected to do. Now, it's important here to make a quick distinction about coaching per se and manager as a coach. Coaching or coaches generally have one main agenda, that is of coaching. That is their primary responsibility, be it a sports coach, be it a life coach, be it a executive coach. They are interested, or that is their job, to basically coach. On the other hand, a manager has the responsibility to deliver, to manage the operations, or be it for a product or a service, and manage its team to deliver results. So therefore, for the manager to also be a coach, it is a balancing act. They have to manage as well as coach. So this distinction should be borne in mind. And though to become a manager as a coach as well, it might need a little investment of time and energy upfront, but in the longer run, it pays dividends. Now, as a coach manager, what is a manager expected to do? Manager is expected to adopt a ask versus tell approach. Instead of telling or directing employees, they should ask powerful questions. This helps the employee to explore and or additional opportunities, additional options, and helps the person to develop their thinking and skills better to be useful in the long run. Managers, as coaches, are also expected to maintain a solution focus. Often, when we encounter a problem, we try and get to the root cause of the problem. Yes, it is needed at times, but it is not always necessary to understand the root cause of the problem to solve it. Problem state always has a past focus, what has happened, whereas a solution state has a future focus, that what should be the solution, what can be done to address certain problems, to address certain challenges. So there is a difference, and if solution focus is adopted, that yields better results. Good managers also focus on development of people and not the task. They lay more emphasis on personal development, on development of their juniors. They are willing to make sacrifices in the outcome or the performance for some time till the junior develops, their subordinates develop, but they have the long-term view in mind where they feel that developing their juniors is more beneficial for the manager themselves, so that he or she can delegate more responsibility, can have a better performing team, which in turn also is beneficial for the organization as a whole. Managers as coaches also build accountability. They assist the employee to sustain and strengthen their commitment on achieving desired goals. They may not do it directly by always trying to control the situation, but indirectly by making the people accountable and responsible to deliver results on their own and maintain the focus and commitment that is needed to perform their tasks well. Also, manager as a coach should be able to coach demand or should have coaching available on tap. That is, as ever needed, on the spur of the moment, just a few minutes or a few seconds to explain to the employee, to explain to the junior what should be the preferred way of working, asking the right questions, expecting the junior or the subordinate or the team member to come up with the right solutions, right approach to achieve the desired results. One point to note here is that coaching works well when people are capable. They have the requisite skills. If somebody is junior, inexperienced, or doesn't have the necessary skills, a coaching style cannot work well. In such instances, authoritative style first has to be adopted, where people are given instructions, given directions. They are allowed to develop their skills to a certain level, and then a coaching style is used. So, though coaching style is desirable and preferred, but that distinction and that judgment has to be made by the manager when to use coaching and when not, as a style of leadership. So moving on, we're coming to the next section, which is trying to understand what are the models and techniques of coaching. The slide has got a little disoriented, but the first blue box basically talks about the GROW model. G stands for goal, R stands for reality, O stands for options, and W for the way forward. The next model is T-GROW, which is a T in addition to the GROW model. That is first a topic, followed by goal, reality, options, and way forward. Now this model, to summarize briefly, or the GROW model, is about first setting goals, then doing a reality check whether the goals are achievable, they are smart, what are the resources that are required to achieve a certain set of goals. Then the individuals are expected to explore the options, what are the possibilities, and then decide on action and chart a course for the way forward. And T-GROW, beyond the basic steps of GROW, also focuses on identifying the purpose or the topic of work. So some additional effort and time is spent on identifying or defining what really is the topic or what really is the desired objective or purpose that the coachee would like to work on. The third model is called Oscar model, where O stands for outcome, S stands for scaling, K stands for know-how, A stands for actions, and R stands for review. Now, outcome and goal are somewhat similar. You define the purpose, you define the outcome you want to achieve. Scaling is a mechanism by which you define, where are you in terms of your knowledge and understanding of how to reach the outcome. So, for example, there may be a question asked on a scale of 1 to 10 that how well informed are you or how confident are you of achieving a certain result. So you might say that my confidence level or my understanding at this point is 4 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. That means you are below the halfway mark in your understanding and confidence. Somebody might say I'm already at 6 or 7 and therefore the need for improvement is a little less than somebody who says he is at a level 4. Know-how is all about, again, options and various types of solutions that can be pursued. Actions, again, are to act on the solutions that one has identified or selected to use. And review is, again, about reviewing the progress and taking things forward. Now, why are these coaching models necessary? That's because coaching provides a framework for the process. So it is important to have a coaching model when serious coaching is done. However, it is not always necessary to follow a model, particularly in the context of manager as a coach. So, as I said before, the manager as a coach has a slightly different, or rather would have a slightly different approach to coaching. And depending upon the situation, depending upon context, may or may not follow a model. But let us also understand what are the essence of the tasks that a manager has to do to coach. And that is what I term as the essence of coaching. First of all, goals have to be set. The purpose has to be defined. What is it that the coachee wants to do, or what is it that is needed for the coachee to perform better or achieve a certain goal? Next, check whether these goals are SMART. We'll also understand in the next slide what does SMART goal mean. It is important that the goal is stated in the positive. Now, what does that mean? Somebody might say, look, I'm working on this project and I do not want to miss my deadline. So that's a negative way of putting it, that I do not want to miss my deadline. The same goal can be stated differently. I will complete this project at least a few days before the deadline. It's the same goal, but stated in two different manners. One is a negative way of stating it, and the other one is a positive way of stating it. So, as a good manager, you should always encourage your people to think positively, come up with positive expressions of what they want to do, and a positive frame of mind, which makes a huge difference. So it is important for the manager to first set goals for the employee, and we just discuss what are the important aspects of goal setting. Next is to help the employee generate ideas. First of all, try and keep a solution focus rather than a problem focus. Ask powerful questions so that the employee is encouraged to think deeply, to come up with different options, to explore new ideas, to explore new avenues, and in the process develop more confidence in evaluating different options, analyzing them, and selecting the most appropriate ones to use. And always the employee should be encouraged to ask, what if, what else? How might I do things differently? How might I do things better? Or what else can be done? Or how can we influence so and so or this group or whatever to do things better? So it's always a question of probing and trying to find better ways of doing things. Now, once the ideas are encouraged, then the action to implement those ideas have to be drawn up and put in place. So then the emphasis shifts to focus on action, which should support learning and deepen commitment. So that's where the manager can help the individual to sustain and deepen the commitment and help in the learning process wherever required. Then the next important thing to do as a manager coach is to review. Without a review or without evidence whether the results are being achieved, whether there is a change for the better, it is just not worthwhile to do any of the previous few things, that is setting of goals, ideas, and action. A review is essential. And whilst taking a review, it is important for the manager to give feedback and also appreciate success. So these are the essential things. There could be some other aspects added to this for a manager as a coach, but it's important to keep in mind at least few of these things that, or if not all of these, that we have just discussed. Now, what are SMART goals? SMART is an acronym for specific goals, measurable goals, attainable goals, relevant goals, or relevant actions, and time-bound goals. So S stands for specific goals or outcome that the individual wishes to achieve. Measurable goals, unless measurable, have no meaning. Attainable, in the sense that they should be possible to achieve, though they may stretch or challenge the individual to achieve the goal, but the goal should be realistic and attainable. And relevant in the sense that goals should be set in the context of the work one is doing, and it should benefit the organization and also be relevant enough for the individual to perform his or her task better. And time bound. Time is of the essence, so the goals that should be set should have a realistic timeline and should be achieved within that timeline. So moving on, we try to understand what are the techniques used in coaching. But before that, let's delve a little more into how the human mind or the human brain has evolved over time. The earliest development of of brains in mammals or reptiles was about 100 million years ago. So the reptilian brain, or the reticular brain as it is called, is the earliest form of intelligence in our evolution system. These brains are simple. It is more, basically designed for survival and fight or flight kind of scenarios. And it works only for the present. The next development that happened, and this brain system is about 50 million years old, is the limbic brain or the emotional brain. This deals with emotions and it has present and a past focus. These are the brains that you will see in animals, dogs, cats, other forms of animals, tigers, lions, or elephants. They'll display some emotions, whether they're happy, they are sad, they are angry, right? So those emotions are visible because this brain allows that sort of functions to perform. Whereas in the human brain or the early form of primates, this brain system is just about 2.5 million years old. And this is a much larger part of our brain than the other two. This part of the brain deals with visioning, reasoning, analytical skills, the ability to socialize, the language skills, building relationships, and so on and so forth. And the important thing to note here is that this brain, the cerebral cortex, is the visual brain. So whenever we think, whenever we ponder over something, all our thinking is done visually. Without visual images, it's impossible for our thought process to flow or for us to manage our thoughts. Whereas the emotional brain is more about auditory signals, auditory impulses, what we hear, what we feel. It is more about the auditory aspect or the feeling aspect which impacts us. And the reptilian brain is all about movement, fight for survival, and it is more of kinesthetic sort of actions. So, important aspect to note here is that we must focus on the visual images that we have. That is the important aspect. As managers, we must inculcate amongst our subordinates or amongst our team members. The more we are focused on visualizing what we want to do, what we want to achieve, what are the risks that we might face, what are the other scenarios that can be explored, the visualization is the key aspect that helps us get better thought clarity and deliver well. So moving on, we'll try and see some of the techniques of coaching. Given time constraints, we will be able to select only a few, and also will not be able to do justice to all the techniques simply because some of them cannot be really explained or discussed well in a webinar scenario. However, I would make an attempt to at least cover some of them which would be easy to discuss and understand in this sort of training mode. First of all, the most important aspect as good managers is the ability to listen. Listening is a skill which has to be developed. Many of the problems that we face in our day-to-day lives is because we don't listen well, be it in our work lives, be it in our personal lives. Inability to listen well at times is a source of much of the conflicts that we encounter. So, active listening must be practiced, must be persevered with. And what does active listening mean? It means paying deep attention. Not only hear what the person is saying, but look for both the non-verbal and verbal messages as much as one can. So it is not just about hearing and letting the thought or the content just pass through from one side of the brain to the other side. It is about hearing and also interpreting what is being told and analyzing it. The other aspect of active listening is that you should demonstrate that you are listening. There should be no distraction. There has to be a feedback that you are interested in listening. You are listening deeply enough to take note of what is being told to you, and also give feedback once in a while to help people understand that you are listening well. It's listening, avoid making judgments. Hold that for the past. Be open-minded. Be flexible. And whenever in doubt, seek clarifications. Try and make sure that what is being told to you is being understood by you in the same manner as it being told to you. So seek clarification and backtrack, etc. Moving on, let us understand what are some of the tips for good listening. So this is something which is straightforward. You can all understand by reading through. But the essential part is the genuineness and the desire to listen. And that has to be communicated very clearly, that you are truly interested in listening. And I've said before, look for not only spoken words but also non-verbal cues. Avoid distraction. Very important these days. You get distracted so easily with emails, phones, and God knows what else. So when you're listening, make sure it's you're not being distracted, rather. Then empathize with the speaker. Make sure that yes, you are in tune with what the person is saying. Whether you agree with them or not is a different matter, but at least to really try and you're making the attempt to understand what the person is saying. Paraphrase from time to time. As I said, seek clarification. Backtrack. Say exactly what the person has said and to confirm that what you have understood is what the speaker has told you. Avoid interruptions. A lot of time, by interrupting, we break the thought flow of the speaker. That should be avoided. And as I said before, be open-minded, avoid prejudice or bias. And do not get preoccupied with trying to frame your responses while listening. That's another pitfall that we have. Moment somebody is speaking, we immediately start thinking how we will react, what we will respond, what we will say. So that should be avoided. First listen and then think about what to respond. Going forward, what are the benefits of active listening? Most importantly, it improves relationships. It helps develop employee morale, motivation, and performance. Trust is very important in all that we do in our work lives, in our personal lives. It builds trust. As I said, listening or good listening avoids conflicts. It improves understanding and the effectiveness of the listener. So listening actually helps the individual to learn, to improve themselves. So listening is as much important as the manager for their self-development as it for their juniors or their team members. And at times, good listening helps people come up with the right solutions. If you ask the right questions, you help the person reflect, and with that, at times they can come up with the answers themselves. So make sure that you practice active listening as much as you can in the work that you do. Now the other aspect is about building rapport. See, when you listen, you also to give the feeling to the speaker that you are listening, and the ways to create rapport is use softness. First of all, speak of something in a different context to start the conversation. So how are you? What are the things that are going on? Something unrelated to the basic agenda of that meeting or that session. And then gradually move into the agenda or the basic purpose of that meeting or that session. Backtracking is about stating what the person has said using the person's keywords or value words. So you do not paraphrase or you do not add your own words, but just restate, okay, you are telling me that you would want to do this in a certain manner. So using exactly the same words that the person has used, you replay it back to him. This reinforces the belief on the speaker that yes, you are understanding them well and that you are in tune with what they have to say. Then try and frame the outcome. I mean, try and lead the speaker to say what is it that they want to do, what is it that they are overall trying to say, and at the same time appreciate what is being said. So make a nod or say, okay. There are many ways of showing or displaying some sort of appreciation. So this helps build rapport. Once the rapport is built, the guards are lowered above the speaker opens up, and that conversation is far more productive and valuable. So moving on, let us understand what are the other techniques to use. So once, say, you've done your listening, you understood what the speaker is saying, then you must ask powerful questions. Powerful questions are important to draw out the thoughts in the person. It helps the person get better thought clarity. It is all about learning and trying to explore new opportunities. It is trying to invoke deeper insights into what you want to do. And questions which basically help the speaker or the coachee or the junior to think more deeply, to envision the scenarios more vividly, and therefore come up with better solutions, better thought clarity. Let us try and see what are the ways these open-ended questions can be asked. Closed-ended questions are ones which have a response either generally yes or no, or a leading question which kind of embeds the answer within the question, right? And closed-ended questions can shut down conversations. It can be self-limiting, whereas open-ended questions are where multiple answers are possible. It gives the speaker the choice of expressing what they have to say in their own words in multiple ways or options or choices. Open-ended questions support learning and inspiration. They are not judgmental. And importantly, it gives the speaker the comfort to reflect deeper and get better clarity. So it establishes the comfort in the speaker more by asking open-ended questions. So let's see some examples of closed-ended and open-ended questions. So you could ask the question to somebody, have you completed task A? What would answer will you get? Either yes or a no. So you are limiting yourself. On the other hand, you can ask what is the status on it, and then that person might say, oh, I've done this, I've done that, this is the situation, that has to be done, etc. You get a much more informed and a more complete image or a view of what is the status on a particular project or a task. You have a problem. What will the person say? Either yes or no. But you can always ask the question differently. How can I help you? Will perhaps address the problem, but when you're asking how can I help you, the person will state that problem in a manner which perhaps will help you solve his problem better. Did you make that mistake? Now that's a question directed at the individual. You are making that person responsible for the mistake. But this question could be asked differently. Can you tell me more about the error? So that means you are trying to find out what happened. Could be that person's fault, but at least that person will tell you in so many words if need be. Then, do you think that was a good idea? Again, the response is likely to be yes or no, or maybe. But what might you do differently? Person come up with many more options of trying to explain that why is it a good idea, or what could be a different idea, or what could be done better. So it's important when you ask questions that your questions are as open-ended as possible. That is the power of powerful questions. So going forward, let's try and understand one more technique of coaching. You take a person to act as if, you encourage the person to act as if. Let's assume that you are the manager and now you have to take some decisions, you have to make some choices. So you are encouraging the person to be in the manager's shoes or be in a position which is different from that person's current situation and asking that person to think differently. So you are asking for a time shift in thinking. Or you might ask him, okay, if you were to be given the task of doing this, what would you do? So perhaps you're leading the person to think differently in a different scenario, in a different context. Then ask what if, what else? How could have this been done differently? So you are always probing and expecting or encouraging the person to think more deeply and differently. Then point of view shift is, you can ask, say you are observing yourself from a corner of the room. What do you see yourself doing? Or say that you are up on the top floor of the building watching yourself walking on the ground floor. How do you see yourself doing? You are in a meeting and take the position of observer and observe what's going on in the meeting. Don't associate yourself as being present, but be an observer. So this is a point of view shift. The other part is thinking, systems thinking, which is encouraging the person to think of the bigger picture. Okay, somebody would have said that this is the problem, this is the situation, this is the issue, but I want to think about the bigger picture. What is the big picture? What can be done, right? Then amplify the solution is another way of asking for a perceptive shift, in the sense that, okay, is this the scenario, or say it's already happened? What do you see if it is happening in the ideal way? What is it that you see? What would have happened to have allowed this situation to work ideally? So you look at different ways on which things could have happened ideally and then come up with new ideas or thinking. And at times it helps to ask a miracle question. Just suppose you had some magic powers or a magic wand to resolve this problem or correct this issue. What would you do? At times it sparks a new thought, a new wave of thinking, and which can bring about some very path-breaking responses. So moving on, we cover another technique used in coaching, which is visualization. Now, visualization would be very difficult to discuss over a webinar. However, I'll just point out what is done in visualization. Visualization is basically a technique where you are actually asked to visualize vividly a scenario going forward. Say, suppose you are expected to lead a project and complete a project. You are expected to see the entire scenario unfolding in a picture or in a movie screen in front of you. You are watching yourself, you're the lead actor in that movie and watching what you're doing, what actions you're taking, how you're feeling, what are the noises around you, who are you interfacing with, and how you're feeling, both physically and mentally, and so on and so forth. Then the next step, you ask yourself to dissociate it from that state and step into the movie screen and see yourself from inside out. Now you are the actor. Now you are seeing things around you. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? Um, what are you doing? And after you go through the experiences and thinking, again you are expected to come back to your current state and dissociate yourself from that movie. Now this helps in opening up new vistas of your mind and exploring new opportunities. And the more you visualize, the more clarity you will get on what you want to do and how it has to be done. Athletes world over use visualizations to succeed. This is a proven technique. Athletes use it. These days, senior executives use it. And it is proven to be very effective in reaching some very difficult goals and challenging situations. So encourage your team members to visualize. Ask them to try and see in as much detail as possible what are they trying to embark on, what is it that they are trying to do. So this visualization is a very important technique that is used in coaching. So now we come to the last section, which is about what is the impact of coaching. So the benefits of coaching are many. One is it increases commitment, it promotes creativity, it empowers people to take ownership and go beyond their defined roles or responsibilities. It allows for accountability to make sure that the goals are being achieved. There is a realistic timeline on which it is being done, and the progress is being monitored. And this accountability gets built into the individuals rather than the manager having to do it if a coaching style is used. Most importantly, coaching builds trust. When you have somebody willing to invest in you, is willing to discuss with you what else could be done better, how could it be done differently, it has a fairly profound impact on the individual and the trust that he or she has for their manager. People as professionals, as junior and subordinates, can have some element of trust, but that may be a question mark in many a times. But the moment somebody is willing to invest in your well-being and willing to spend time to understand your situation and willing to lend a helping hand, the element of trust increases manifold. That in turn encourages improved performance. The moment people trust each other, it leads to better performance, better relationships. It in turn promotes better morale and therefore retention within the organization. And overall, because of these things, coaching helps in improved skills and knowledge. Now, we've understood the impact of coaching. Now, let us understand that in the context of high performance teams. Now, one definition of high performance is, as you see in this slide, that there are three stages of high performance. One is engaging the team, next is enabling them, and lastly, energizing them. And in the engaging phase, you have to define your purpose, achieve, or rather, ask for the commitment that's needed, and build trust among team members. Next is to see what capabilities you need, how will you hold people accountable, and the policies that aid in delivery of whatever you expected to do. And the next stage is about energizing, where you are asked or expect, high performance teams are creative, they are empowered, and also their success is recognized. So in the context of this, let us see the benefits that we saw about coaching, how much of that this can fulfill. So you see, most of the elements of high performance, as described in this slide, can be met by coaching. So this brings me to the end of the webinar, and let's try and summarize what we have discussed. So, to begin with, we have tried to understand what are the 6 leadership styles and how situational leadership is important to use different styles in different situations. How does leadership influence organizational climate and how climate influences results? Coaching leadership style and what a manager as a coach is expected to do. We've also discussed the difference between training, mentoring, and coaching. We've discussed briefly, though, a few coaching models that are used and the essence that should be used in coaching. And then we've tried to cover a few techniques in coaching, such as active listening, powerful questioning, and open-ended questions, perceptive shift, and visualization. And lastly, we have covered what impact coaching has. So with this, I come to the end of the webinar session, and would now try and address the questions that you would have raised.
Thank you, Mr. Dasgupta. Now we shall take the questions as we see.
Just a moment, we are trying to see the questionnaire screen on our laptop. We've got a visibility into that.
Okay. See, there is a question from Pawan Dubey. Do we mean that coaching to be given for an employee who is motivated? Mr. Dasgupta?
Well, coaching can be given to all people. However, it works best when people are motivated, when people have the desire to change and improve. If somebody doesn't want to change or improve, there's not much you can do. You can take a horse to the water, but you cannot make the horse drink. So, in the same way, coaching is most effective when people are keen and interested in changing and improving. Okay.
There is another question. Don't employees figure out earnestly of invest or coaching if it comes from vested interest in individual versus getting to desired goals? This is a question from Janin Nirmal.
Well, honesty or integrity is very easily visible by most people, though often we tend to believe that that can be clouded or that can be sort of camouflage, or sometimes we believe we are smarter than the other person in trying to hide certain things, but that shows up very easily. Now, if it is to understand your question better, if it comes from a vested interest in an individual versus getting desired goals, that part is not clear, but let me try and answer that. It all depends upon the commitment, both and the sincerity, both from the coach's side and the coach's side. So both are important. The honesty and the what to say level of commitment of the coach and the coachee to achieve results.
There is a question from Ramanathan on topic and goal. Seems to be similar in the scenario explained. Can you please explain more on this?
Okay. Now, most likely you are referring to the GROW model versus the T-GROW model. Now, in addition to GROW, there is another element called topic. See, when you set goals, it often we feel that we can set our goals easily, but many times the picture itself is not clear. What is the goals that you want to see? What is the purpose that you want to work on? So before you start setting goals, you spend some more time getting that clarity, and that's what topic means. This is a something which happens quite often, though we may not realize it. We feel that we have clear thoughts in our mind and clear thinking, but the moment you dig deeper, the moment you start probing and questioning, you will find at times the basic purpose, basic intent, basic what to say outcome is not clearly understood or clear, and that spending time to first select the topic or the area to which to work on is important, and then based on that goals are set.
There is a question from Satyamurthy K. Give us an example of triune brain system.
See, as I said, that the brain has three main components, particularly the human brain. The largest part is the cerebral cortex, which is the brain, part of the brain which is responsible for thinking, analysis, or language skills, or social skills, and so on and so forth. Then the next part of the brain is the emotional brain, which basically, what to say, manages the emotions that we have, whether we are feeling sad, we are angry, we are what to say, despondent, right? Whether we are happy, and so on and so forth. So these are the emotional aspects which this brain covers. That is the emotional brain. And then there is the other part of the brain which basically looks at our safety. So one moment you see fire near you, you will shift away. You touch something hot, immediately your nervous system responds by moving your hand from that hot object, right? So the smallest part of the brain is about your safety and it's about immediate response. The emotional brain, which is the next larger part, basically deals with your emotions and your mental state. And the largest part of your brain, which is the visual brain or the cerebral cortex, takes care of most of the functions that humans do, which most other mammals don't. That is, we have thinking skills, we have analytical skills, we have much more social skills. Most importantly, we have language skills with almost no other animals in the animal kingdom have, other than humans, or at least it is the most developed. Even cats, dogs, etc., have some vocabulary, but of very limited nature.
Jagadish Chandrababu is asking a question. How can we get quality output without being a coercive manager? It's an interesting question.
Yes, good you asked that. Now, obviously, coercion works to a while, and it is basically about telling people what to do. So, if the boss or the manager is good in directing people and getting them to work to his ways, yes, the output will be good, but that cannot continue for long, because every individual has an individual persona, has a personality, has an intellect. They want to be able to use that to do their work. They have to be respected. They have to be given that independence to use that intellect. So, of course, a manager would generally not allow that to happen. The only way you can make that happen is through different styles of leadership. In some extent, where you can use an authoritative style, where you set directions, but you don't necessarily monitor what's going on. Ask the person to come up with the right choices, or give some examples of doing things well. The best way to do it obviously is through coaching, where you invest in helping the person develop and coming up with the quality output that is possible. So the moment you apply more than one mind in getting solutions, obviously the outcome will be better, rather than the manager telling you what to do. You are asking, the manager is asking a group of people working for him to come up with their thoughts, come up with their new ideas, and therefore culmination of better several minds can generally lead to better ideas and quality output.
How to identify which style
To adopt.
That is the question from
Just a minute.
Mrs. Once it is a question from Mrs. Mary A. Shirley.
Well, that would depend on the situation. See, when there is a crisis, there is a safety issue. Obviously, a cohesive style of leadership would be necessary and desired or desirable. When a company is charting new course, it's new, it's infancy, and opportunities are quite unlimited, that's where perhaps an authoritative style is necessary, where a few people in that organization is setting a direction, setting a path to follow, and others are following. And you know that perhaps the company is going through some uncharted territories, and that's when an authoritative style helps. Democratic style helps when you want to build relationships and strong bonds. Often between groups or between teams, relationships are soured for some reason or the other. So at those times, or within a team, between a few people, the relationships are not as good as they ought to be. In a democratic style, that helps, you know, fixing those relationships and helping the team work together and cohesively, right? So that's when our democratic style is used. Pace setting style, though, in needs of you know, urgency, where you have to really deliver on something and you want to deliver this as quickly as possible in the best possible manner, is useful. But then that has got only very limited application and should be avoided as much as possible. Then coaching style, as I have explained and as we have discussed, is when you are in a situation where you are thinking about the long term, thinking about the long term interest of the organization in developing a strong and an able workforce, capable team members, high performing teams, and future leaders. That's when you tend to try and adopt a coaching style. And coaching style obviously is best applicable when things are on more or less even keel. You are doing your things well, but then if you want to do things better, you want to make sure that people take more responsibility, you can delegate more. That's when you use the coaching style, so that the manager is freed up to do other things and the team members can take more responsibility.
Pawan Dubey is asking, how do we coach an employee who plays on organization's weakness?
Well, obviously, there is some vested interest in somebody trying to have a negative approach to work, right? If first of all, then you have to ask the person, why is it that that person is behaving as it is? First of all, instead of maybe asking the question directly, ask him the context of what he's doing, what are the factors that are impacting him, how is he being influenced by others, or whether he's enjoying what he's doing or not, or what are the circumstances which perhaps are responsible for the kind of behavioral patterns he is showing. And then maybe ask him some very direct questions, that what he feels about the whole scenario, what else could be done differently, how could you as a manager help him address the problems he has, because of which perhaps he is trying to exploit the organizational weakness, etc. And also try and assure him or build a climate for him which is different than the overall organizational climate, so that at least the person has the comfort that yes, this manager is caring, this manager is interested in my well-being, and I'm more than happy to do what it takes to deliver well and not worry about the organizational weakness or exploit it.
Fani Kumar is asking, how do we empower the team members?
Well, empowerment is all about, one, delegating work. Secondly, is that giving giving the employees that assurance that whatever decisions they take or actions they take, even if they make a few small mistakes, would be acceptable, right? They have the liberty to decide and not come back to the manager for every small decision or action they need to take. So that is empowerment, giving the sense of ownership and confidence amongst people to take certain decisions, if they, I mean, what they think best, right? After all humans are intelligent people. Generally, they act in the best interest of the organization and themselves. At times, they may err in their judgment or they may err in their decision making. But as long as certain boundaries are set that okay, any major decisions should be discussed and deliberated before they are taken, but smaller decisions can certainly be taken by people who are faced with a certain situation or responsible for a certain task, and even if they make a few small mistakes, it will be acceptable. That is what empowerment means.
How many companies are providing coaching to managers? Prakash Jahangir Devarkonda.
Well, coaching per se is relatively new management practice or a belief. It is about 25-30 years old worldwide, and in India it is even more nascent. Say maybe for the last 10-15 years it has been in use and gradually gaining momentum. It would be difficult to say how many companies are doing it, but more and more companies are doing it. The awareness that coaching is a way of developing people has grown, and it is certainly being practiced. And as we speak, you know, a lot of people are getting trained as coaches, and therefore, going forward, you can only see more and more companies using coaching to develop their managers.
Muhammad Imtiaz is asking how to deal with people who don't have skills or not willing to grow.
Well, if they don't have skills, the first thing you would need to do is train them in certain skills which you think are important. Now, there may be certain limitations still that the person just does not have the aptitude or pick up those skills. Then that's of course a serious issue, and then some more drastic action is to be taken. But in general, people are always willing to perform well unless they have a very negative mindset and attitude, and those are situations you encounter very rarely. So if you skill people, at times the lack of skill may be a deterrent to change or growth. That may be the invoking some amount of fear and apprehension that I don't have the skill and therefore I cannot grow or I cannot develop or change. So once if the people, a person is given the necessary training to get skill, builds a little more confidence, then it's likely that that person might change and be willing to grow and develop.
I think it is a little related question. Anyway, I shall ask. This is asked by Pawan Dubey. If we feel an employee needs coaching, how can we give him the responsibility? Do we not need a mentor to accomplish the task?
So, well, whether the employee needs coaching is the manager to decide, and the manager can see that the person can be coached. Now, if a person needs to be developed or make them successful in their performing their task, one way is to train people. Another way is to mentor, means you are sharing your experiences, you are telling them that look, in such scenarios, this is what works well, or this is what should be done, right? So that is mentoring. And here you, by asking the question, you have confused a little bit about mentoring and coaching. So the ways to deal with employee to help the person who's not so skilled is to first train the person and get them skilled, if necessary, mentor them, and then look at coaching, where you are trying to help the person develop better skills in trying to analyze a situation, come up with their solutions, come up with an independent thought process, be more confident in what to say, trying to come up with solutions to problems they encounter, or find innovative or creative ideas to tackle the work that they do. So it could be in a sequence of training, mentoring, and coaching, or and it could be some elements of all three, or maybe just training and mentoring, whatever. Uh, if you can coach people in addition to training and mentoring, that's the best situation to be in.
Srinivas Vinayak Talkad, I think, is it a question or a comment? I think it's more of a comment. In the current world, is coaching leadership being used more prominently? It's a question. Yeah.
Well, yes, it is. See, particularly senior leaders, by the time they are senior, they're holding senior positions, they have gone through maybe several training programs during their course of their career. And there's not much, not too many new things that you can explain to them or train them on. But they are all at times faced with several challenging situations which are specific to their position, specific to their role, and specific to their job. In such situations, training is of not much use. So that's where the manager has to share those ideas, bounce them off with somebody else, and see whether they are making the right choices, they are analyzing it correctly or not. And that's when a coach is necessary to help the person navigate through those situations, or for the intervention which is specific to that individual and specific to the context of their work. So that's where coaching is necessary.
Ravi Shankar A is asking a question. Is there a way to measure leadership?
Well, there's no quantitative measure, but leadership can be measured by the results that the team is delivering, right? A leader obviously is not working alone. A leader will have a few people working for him, and the collective performance of that group in delivering certain set of results would be some sort of a yardstick to measure leadership. Each organization or each type of business has certain sort of norms of working, or certain KPIs that they can be measured on. That is productivity per employee, or sales per employee, or whatever. Now, the moment a certain group of people under a leader is delivering on certain results, if those KPIs are compared with KPIs of other organizations in a very similar situation, immediately you can figure out how well this organization is doing with respect to the rest of the industry. And if it is poor, then it has to be investigated. At times it not necessarily be a leadership issue, it could be other issues, but if that is probed, if it's a leadership issue, it will emerge, and that's when that's how you perhaps can measure leadership.
There is a question, need more clarity on how to defer judgment while listening. Slide 22.
Okay, now what does defer judgment mean? When you're listening to somebody, he is or she is saying something, and then if you are open-minded and unbiased, you will just hear what they have to say and not form your own judgment whether that person is morally correct, that person has taken the right decision, or that person is approaching the problem or the situation correctly, or that person has the right intent or some sort of a vested um, idea in mind, and so on and so forth. So if you start analyzing what the person is saying in the context of some judgmental issues, then you really stop listening. You're not an effective listener then, because your mind is involved in thinking on other aspects other than what the speaker is saying. So when you're hearing, just listen. Don't come up with any judgmental, what to say, uh, views, or try to judge that person. Rather, just listen and try to understand the point of view the person is making, and try and assimilate that in an as unbiased as manner as possible.
Okay, Prakash Jahangir Devarakonda. He has a question. Since how long coaching concept is available in India?
As I said a little while ago, maybe 15 years or so, it is started and is gradually gaining momentum.
Anyway, related with, I just wanted to, in a lighter vein, I wanted to ask you a question. See, in history, what style of leadership Chanakya or Kautilya would have used to build the Chandragupta Maurya dynasty? I mean, it's a lighter vein.
Well, it's difficult to go back that much in history because all you have is very limited view on what they perhaps did and what was the context then. But certainly what emerges from the text is that Chanakya was a master strategist, right? And was a kingmaker, not a king perhaps, but a kingmaker. Now, these are elements which are perhaps demonstrable in a coaching style of leadership, or people who are willing to share their knowledge or their expertise to develop others, and let knowledge help in the overall sort of growth and well-being of people, rather than using it for their own personal, what to say, benefit. So therefore, as as teachers are or coaches are, they look at the development and the interest and success of their wards or their people. They are not interested in their own success. As a coach, the predominant or the underlying approach is to make the coachee or their team member succeed, and to some extent, perhaps the way Chanakya's strategies or Chanakya's principles of leadership or governance would perhaps fall more into that sort of category.
Okay, thank you. What do you mean by powerful questions? It's from Pani Kumar.
Well, I just asked, perhaps gave very few examples in the paucity of time. Powerful questions is about asking, first of all, open-ended questions. You don't ask that, do you think that taking this step would help? That means you will get a response either yes or no. So it is not open-ended. So the other way of asking this question is, what do you think, or what steps might you take to solve this problem? Then the speaker or person who will respond to this will come up with alternative scenarios, this, that, or whatever. That's when you try and ask, what else? Keep it as open-ended. What might you do if you were this, what to say, benefit of having this support? Or what might you do if you are in this position? Or what might you do if you are in, this sort of a role? Or what are the other possibilities do you have? Have you explored all options? So that's how you keep asking and probing. The moment you ask questions, then you ask, why might you do it? Then the person will come up with, yes, I will do this for these reasons. Then pick up on one thing and again ask a set of questions which would encourage that person to think more deeply, to probe more deeply, and perhaps come up with the best possible solutions or answers to the tasks they have to perform or problems they have to resolve.
What is reflective listening? This is from Srinivas Vinayak.
Reflective listening is about asking a person to reflect themselves that, okay, what would you have done in this situation if you had an ideal condition to deal with. So you are asking that person to reflect on the situation themselves a little more deeply, and while doing that, sometimes it makes the speaker or that person you are asking the question come up with the solution themselves. So it asks you to reflect on the way you are approaching a problem or the way you are thinking about the solution to a problem, and therefore you are being encouraged to reflect more deeply on a certain situation, and therefore, you know, at times it might help the speaker to analyze the situation better, as well as maybe come up with the solution to the problem that they're looking for. They don't need to go anywhere else. They, through that sort of process, they are able to come up with their answers that they're looking for themselves.
What obvious potential outcome if the employee is not even considering or inclined to learn how to handle that situation from Vijayarity?
Well, it is all about making that person understand the context in which he or she is in. What would it mean if that person changes or develops? How would it impact or benefit him or her? How would it impact the organization? And what sort of difference it can make. So often people are reluctant, not I would say often, at times I think it's more of a the percentage of people who don't want to change would be few rather than wanting to change. But if there would be situations where people would be reluctant, but try and find out what the root cause is. Why is the person doing it? Is that because of inherent limitation, whether it is a sense of a fear, whether it is of some other external influence? And if you can help that person get over it, it's quite likely that person will turn around and change. It is a possibility. Of course, there can also be one of those rare situations where the person just does not want to change and is very mentally adamant not to make a difference. Well, in those cases, there's not much you can do.
What would be the best method to avoid high attrition? Jagdish Chandra Babu. May not be very directly related with the coaching style per se, but you could give.
Yeah, it would be. See, the moment you invest in people, make them do your best to help them. See, often people move not because they're not liking their job. Not because they're happy with their company, or they're unhappy with their remuneration. But often they leave because of the manager. More often than not, it is because they are not able to get along well with their manager or their immediate peers and team members, and the relationships are not working well. That's by and large is the major reason for attrition. Now, if you can fix that, you will have control a large part of your attrition. But there would be instances where people still might leave, but if you can invest in people with strong relationships, that would bring down the attrition levels further. So building that relationship, using coaching to build relationships, to build trust, to get better commitment, etc., certainly helps in reducing our attrition.
Okay, there is a question. When brain has a capacity of 2.5 million years and 50 million years and 100 million years as per triune brain system, then why people lose the memory power when they cross his older age, say 70 or 80 years? This is question from Mahesh R from Starlight India.
Okay, it is like this, that this what we discussed about the triune brain is the evolution of the animal kingdom, from reptiles to birds to animals or mammals to humans, right? So this is how we have evolved on this planet over time, from early stages of the evolution where only reptiles existed, there were no birds. After reptiles came birds. After birds came mammals, and from mammals came humans. So this is nothing but how the evolution of the animal kingdom has progressed. So that has nothing to do with the state of physical condition of an individual's brain. See, this just is used to describe what are the key components of a brain and how is that used. But in terms of physical health of a brain, it would depend upon the individual, and therefore, certain people can suffer from memory loss, etc. So that has nothing to do with the concept of evolution, which was what we discussed, rather than the basic physical condition of somebody's brain.
Which method will help to be a good manager, rationally or emotionally getting the work done? From Jagdish Chandra Babu.
Well, it can be a combination of both. You have to assess the situation, whether the person enjoys more emotional comfort or is more rational. And so the person would have to make an assessment of what would help in that situation, what is the context with the employee or the situation with the employee, and it could be a combination of both giving the emotional comfort that that person needs and the emotional support, and then maybe look at the rational aspect so that the person is able to get on the emotional stress or discomfort, and then start looking at things rationally, which is conducive to better performance.
Which of the coaching models seems to be more effective, from Saika Gupta?
Well, GROW model is by and large most popular and well used, but there are other models, and there are variations of the Oscar model, which, in my personal opinion, can be more effective. But it is again for the individual to decide which model to use. But as long as the essence is maintained in setting the right goals, in getting the flow of ideas and deep thinking and analysis, and then coming up with the solutions, followed by proper action and committed action. As long as this keeps happening, is fine, regardless of the model that you choose.
Which part of the tune used by the great managers? I think it is a question from Nikhil Rustagi. He might have left also.
But obviously, it is the cerebral cortex of the visual brain. That is what comes most effective in our thinking, our ability to manage relationships, social order, language, etc., etc. So it's all the visual brain which helps us function as most as humans as we do.
Who determines the solution is right? Is it coach or coachee? From Panikumar.
More often than not, is the coachee, because if you, as a manager, are always giving, deciding what is right or wrong, then the coachee does not develop. The coachee does not have an independent mind of thinking. The coachee does not have the confidence to see whether they are rather confidence of feeling that whether their solution is right or wrong. So, though the manager might come up with questions, probe the coachee, ultimately the coachee should find the solution and come up with the right answers. And that's what coaching is all about, is probing the coachee strong enough, the right manner, so that the coachee is able to come up with their own solutions. It is like the Chinese proverb: instead of giving fish to a person, you are helping the person fish and therefore be self-sufficient and independent.
Why do we really have a coach, a high-skill employee? Can't we guide him to what needs to be done? Yes, guidance would work out well here from Pawan Dubey.
I'm sure you follow sports. Even the best and most talented of sportsmen, be it Sachin Tendulkar, Roger Federer, footballers like Cristiano Ronaldo, all have coaches. The coach is able to see you from outside and hold a mirror to you. So even the best of people, most capable of people, often are not able to see certain things which others can do. And not that the coach is able to correct some of the technical deficiencies, because in any case, as people whom we are talking about are the best in business they are in. I mean, there are few people who can boast of skills and records like Tendulkar or Roger Federer, but yet they have coaches. So it's more of giving a different perspective, helping the person look at other options which the coach does, and that's why even the most skilled and capable people can do with the coach.
Okay, we shall take the last question this is from Vivek Kaparia. If very
5 10 minutes we can still 5 or 10 minutes.
5 minutes we can extend. Okay. So in that case, we shall take a few more questions. Vivek Taparia is asking, if a very smart individual contributor in team are getting disturbed because of external factors, which is disturbing the entire team, how do you motivate him?
So at times, perhaps what happens is the situation described, that somebody who's very capable or key contributor does not see the value in the support or the contributions of other team members, because they perhaps have the feeling that they are better off. But the moment you can explain to that individual that working together as a team is beneficial for that individual, however smart that person might be, for his personal development as well as for team performance, then that person might change, because ultimately what matters is what the team delivers, not what an individual delivers. The individual can be strong, fine, but up to a point. Sooner or later that person will move up, will become a manager, and then their personal contribution will matter. It is the team's contribution will matter, and therefore that person should be made to understand that always team comes first, however brilliant the individual may be. And if that person is really so capable and brilliant, they should extend some help to the others who can benefit from that person's skills and capability.
There is a question from Hema Malini Dhanpal. How do we do the perceptive shift during live scenarios? It might not have the same relevance on all scenarios.
You can always find scenarios to relate to. Perceptive shift is nothing but shifting your point of view from what you are. Say you are sitting in a shop floor and thinking about certain problems or issues you have, right? Now, what if the other person, now think of a scenario where you've got ideal conditions of that floor, everything is working well. What is it that you do? Or you have the opportunity to take some measures, say 6 months down the road, and fix the problems that you think are are preventing you from delivering what you want to do, what would you do? Consider yourself in a situation 6 months from now. You got the opportunity to correct a few things. What would you do? So this is what perceptive shift is about changing the point of view from the present context and ask the person to think from a different angle, from a different point of view, from a different position, so that might bring in some additional thoughts and a different way of looking at things, and therefore helping resolving the problems or coming up with good solutions.
Many a times managers don't prefer to coach, fearing that it may be detrimental for their own growth.
Yeah.
How should we handle? Is this a result of organization climate? This is from Mrs. Mary A. Shirley.
No, this is not a result of organizational climate. It is more about the lack of confidence that the person or manager has amongst themselves. So if that manager is somehow consoled or coached, then that they should not feel threatened, or this self-confidence should not come in the way of coaching, it would change. But basically, ability of a manager or reluctance of a manager not to coach people, fearing that they would be better than him, comes from a sense of insecurity on that individual per se. And that has to be tackled by the manager in helping that person get over that kind of thinking mode or method.
So now time is up. We are not taking any more questions.
So what we will do, the other questions that I have not been able to answer, there are many more I see. I will respond to them, which will be posted on the website. And if you still have some other questions, you can always send a mail or something, and I would be happy to answer them for you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Das Gupta, for a very insightful webinar on coaching style. I also thank all the participants. Your participation has been great, which actually improved the, which gave very new, allowing Mr. Das Gupta to share many more insights apart from his presentation. Thank you so much. I would like to, I have an announcement for all the participants. The presentation and recorded link of the session would be uploaded into MyCII shortly for the benefit of the members. So, in a very nutshell, I can say that the coaching style of management can improve the trust among the employees in a great way, and it can improve the organization's climate, which would help in growing the company. With that, I close, and I thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Also from my side, thank you, Ravindra, for sort of steering this session. And to all participants, thank you for listening. I hope you all have benefited as much as I enjoyed doing the webinar for you. Feel free to raise questions if you still wish to, and I will respond to the unanswered questions as soon as the link is up. The presentation is up on the site. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everybody.